Alright guys, so for those of you unfamiliar with the world we're living in today, Konami's been doing a 2020 Create a Card project. Basically what they did was they took 16 archetypes, put it to a vote, and had the community vote on which archetype they'd like to see get a world premiere card in 2021. Unfortunately, Inzektor's won. I kind of kid there, but realistically speaking, I've never been a huge fan of this deck. I've played Yu-Gi-Oh! For a long time. I remember when it was on its absolute reign of terror back in 2012. They had access to everything at 3. The deck was just completely insane, and it ended up winning worlds, it ended up topping events. Realistically speaking, it was just a really toxic deck back in the day. That being said, decks I wanted to see win the poll, like Mermail and Photon, didn't quite make it there, and so this is what we're left with, which means that if I want to make content and talk about this, I gotta talk about Inzektors. So that's what we're gonna do. Before we get into the video, though, I'll ask you guys, if you have not subscribed already, please go ahead and take 2 seconds to hit that subscribe button. As of the time of making this video, we are at 3,092 subscribers. Would love to get to 3,100 by the beginning of November. If we make it to that goal by the 1st of the month, I will do a giveaway for the month of November. Your support is much appreciated. Now, that being said, I wanted to take a look at Inzektors today and then just have a little bit of theory discussion at the end about what we should be looking towards for the world premiere card. We're going to be voting, no, I say we as in the community, is going to be voting on whether or not it's going to be a monster or a non-monster, and then if it's a non-monster, they're going to vote on whether it's a spell or trap, so on and so forth. And we don't really know what the next step of that's going to be after this, but I figure we'll take a look through the archetype, and then I'll let you know a couple of theories I have in my head about what the deck could benefit from, and how I plan on voting in the poll. That being said, we'll start with some of the key cards in the deck that I think we'll still see play, even in 2020 or next year, whenever the support comes out. The metagame has changed drastically in the past 8 years. That's not breaking new ground, but some of these cards are still insanely powerful and don't have once per turn restrictions, which is just really where they shine, especially as Inzektors are concerned. So all of the Inzektors have the ability where they can equip an Inzektor from their hand or graveyard to them. That's a once per turn. They all have that same effect. They also include the effect that if it's equipped to a monster, that monster's levels increase by 3. So we're not going to go into that on every single one. But here's where Hornet shines. So if it's equipped to a monster, you send it to the graveyard to destroy a card on the field. That's it. No once per turn, no once per copy, nothing. You can do this as often as you like as long as you have it in the spell and trap zone. It used to be a $50 super rare for a reason. This deck was, far and away the best deck for a little while anyway. It had some competition from Dino Rabbit and other things, and Hornet was really part of the reason why, but it wasn't the only reason. Inzektor Centipede is basically the same as Hornet for its introductions, but instead of having a send effect, if it's equipped with an equip card and that equip card is sent to the grave, you can add an Inzektor card from your deck to your hand. So obviously you have Hornet on it, you send Hornet, pop something, you search. It's a +1 because you're getting that field removal as well. This is, again, not a once per turn, so if somehow you manage to equip them with multiple cards, send multiple things to the grave, you can do this more than one time, which is going to come in handy when we get into some of the combos as we go down the list here. Both this and Hornet are still incredibly good, and both would be played at 3 in any build, whether it's today or if you're looking at older builds back then, barring the time that, some of them were on the list. The most broken of the 3, at least as far as 2012 was concerned, is Inzektor Dragonfly. So this, when an equip card that's equipped to it is sent to the grave, you can special summon an Inzektor monster from your deck. Just one combo you could do is send Hornet, pop something, special Centipede, re-equip that Hornet from grave, send it to pop something else. You've cleared 2 cards, you searched one, and now you can make a Leviair, or you can make something, which nowadays isn't as big of a deal, but back then you could really kind of get your plays going and do a lot of damage with a play like that. Dragonfly was on the list at 1 for the longest time and just recently came off, which I'll admit I'm still a little skeptical about. I just think overall he's a really good card, and that no once per turn restriction on your special summoning doesn't cap him. So obviously that's something they got to take into consideration when they make the new support. Inzektor Gigamantis is the other one I included. There are a few level 5 or higher equipped monsters, and I just don't think the other ones are as good. Gigamantis can equip himself from the hand to an Inzektor. While it's equipped to a monster, that monster's attack becomes 2,400, so basically gives you some beat stick power. And then if it's sent to the grave while equipped to a monster, you can special summon an Inzektor from your graveyard. Now that is a hard once per turn, thankfully, but just an example combo. If you have this equipped to a Centipede, you send Hornet that's equipped to that same Centipede, you pop this, you get to special from grave, you get to search up Centipede, you get to pop off Hornet. It's just, it ladders up into so many combos, and without things like Max C to kind of balance that out, granted you have like Nibiru now, so there are hand traps that can play against it, but realistically, You can chain block things like Ash Blossom, depending on how you build your chains. So the deck still has the ability to play through a lot of these interruptions. Now, Gigamantis is, I don't know, it's a 3 of. I'm not really sure what the numbers would be. I think that'll depend entirely on what the support is, but it'll definitely see play in the deck, and if you don't have your ultimate rare copies already, it looks like you're kind of SOL. They got bought out. The market spiked on them tremendously, but I think the Ultras are still relatively affordable, and maybe if they do put Inzektor support in something new, you'll see reprints of these and Centipede and a couple of the other ones that are, you know, just going to be key components of the deck. Now, onto the extra deck, you've got ExoBeetle. It's rank 6, and all of the Inzektors have some ways of modifying levels, so you can get to 6, you can get to 5. Like, there's different ways to do that, and it's, you know, that's another topic for another video. But ExoBeetle's a really good generic card. He basically, when he's summoned, you target a monster in either graveyard, equip it to him, and then he gets attack and defense equal to half that monster's attack and defense. It's good. Doesn't really do a ton, you know, generally speaking, but you can bring back Hornet, you can equip Hornet to it, you can send, you can pop something. So basically, he's at least going to act as removal. His second effect, you detach a material, target one card on each field, and destroy them. I'm sorry, send them to the graveyard, rather, which is much better than destroying them. Again, I just keep repeating myself here. You know, you send your Hornet that's equipped to something, or you send your Gigamantis and one of your opponent's cards, you plus off of plays that are already generating advantage for you. And that's what makes this a good card. Now, they have Exostag, which is a level 5. Never been a huge fan, but, you know, maybe depending on the support, he could have some relevance. Now, Picofilena is one that came out of Flames of Destruction. This card is nuts. This is 2 insects. If it's Link Summon, you discard a card, and then you target an insect on the field except itself. You equip another insect from your deck to it as an equip spell, and then it gets a 500 attack and defense boost. If this card had been around in 2012, Inzektors would have been tier 0 plus. Like, what it does in terms of allowing you to get access to whichever Inzektor you want at that exact moment, or a different insect if for some reason you were playing some hybrid deck or whatever, is, it just can't be understated. And 2 insect monsters is not hard to do. And then it also has an effect that lets you target 3 insects in your grave, shuffle them into the deck, and draw 1 card. Basically a Daigusto Emerald effect. This deck can cycle through its combo pieces easily, so being able to put them back in deck is never a bad thing. Picofilena will absolutely be a center point of the deck, you know, in its, assuming we get a new approach to Inzektor based on whatever the new support is, and this card should not be understated. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a foil print, but I could see it being like a super and an OTS or something. Now, really the only spell trap that comes to mind that they would play is Excalibur. This was a one-of back in the day, and some decks maybe played a couple, but ultimately it was basically you played it because you could search it off Centipede and then extend your combos further. It boosted Inzektor by 800 attack and defense. That's kind of meaningless. And then if it's face up and sent to the grave, you can target an Inzektor monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. So, you know, send Hornet, pop this, add an Inzektor from grave to hand, special something off whatever Hornet was equipped to, and so on and so forth. You get the point. So, just a really good card. The ultis got bought out. I think you could probably get ultras at a relatively affordable price. I don't think they're extravagantly high, maybe 8 to 10 bucks if even, but people are obviously hyped for the support. This last card included on here is not an Inzektor card, but if you don't have them, I would pick them up. It got reprinted as a secret in the Legendary Duelist Season 1, so it shouldn't be too expensive. But it reads as follows. Tribute an insect monster from either field equipped with an equip card. If you do, special summon 1 insect monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. This is, you know, picture-made, tailor-made for Inzektors in general, right? Because they're all going to be equipped with equipped cards. But you can grab any insect you want from the deck. I don't even know if there's insects out there that might be good to play that I'm not even thinking of right now that have effects, and you ignore the summoning conditions. So, in and of itself, just a really powerful card. But it also has a second effect. During your main phase, banish it from the grave, target an insect in your graveyard, shuffle it into the deck, then draw 1 card. So it replaces itself. It lets you put your combo pieces back. It can push for game. It's a quick play spell, so you can grab something out after you've already attacked. And realistically, the first effect is not a once per turn, so if you open multiple copies, you can use multiple copies. I just think this is a card to keep in mind when looking at different builds for Inzektors and when looking at the new support as a whole. That's why I wanted to include it on the list. So that about wraps up the recap portion of this. Kind of a brief walk down memory lane for Inzektors, for those of you maybe unfamiliar with the archetype. Now, the question comes up, what type of support are we going to get with the Create a Card project? So I lean towards one of two things. I think it either needs to be a main deck monster or an extra deck monster. I don't see Spell or Trap support being directly helpful. I mean, yes, if they get something like a Nadir Servant or a card that like allows them to search and then you mill an insect or do something like that, it would be really good, but I don't see that type of support coming. I think what we should look towards is either an Inzektor main deck monster, similar to Hornet, Centipede, and Dragonfly, that either specials an Inzektor from Grave, because they don't have Grave Recursion directly on one of their level 3 monsters, or an extra deck monster that offers some kind of negation. So perhaps it's like two, you know, I'm guessing Xyz is going to be the way they go. Maybe it'll be a 5 or a 6. Maybe it'll be a 3. But detach a material, send an equip spell on your field to the grave, negate a spell, trap, or monster effect, something of that nature, that gives them the ability to go first and have a board that they can actually sort of force the opponent to have to play through. Obviously, the deck is designed to go second, but you can build variants going first where you can go Appaloosa and do things like that depending on how well you open. Hand traps exist, Call by the Grave hurts, but it is limited, and so there's going to be a lot of things that we have to take into consideration. I personally went ahead to vote for monster versus non-monster, and I think when it comes down to it, a main deck monster might be the way to go, because they could use another strong Inzektor combo piece that adds to the deck, but depending on how they make the extra deck monster, and if they don't add too many restrictions, obviously I don't want something broken that's generic, but if you make something that's, you know, an Inzektor Xyz that needs insects to make, and has some kind of negation, I think overall that could be the right direction to look in. So let me know what you guys think, what type of support you want to see, what you're going to vote for, and even if you have some of your own custom theories for Inzektor cards, drop them down below. I'll read the comments, and maybe we'll feature some of them in a future video, depending on what gets chosen here. So I just wanted to go over the archetype. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time at Love Shack.